Hello everybody! So 6 years ago, I made tier list videos for each season of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. My opinions have changed a lot since then, so I think it's about time to revisit the show. In this video, we are ranking every episode in Season 1. Friendship is Magic. Yeah, by the way, I'm reviewing two-parters together. It feels weird for me to talk about them separately. These two-parters really feel like two halves of a whole. So Friendship is Magic, the series premiere that started it all. The animation is pretty decent. Each of the main six are introduced well, Spike too. This conflict is perfect to introduce us to the world, as it surrounds the two princesses in the Summer Sun celebration. We also get introduced to important recurring locations in the show. We got Canterlot, Ponyville, the Everfree Forest. All of that is great world building for the first episode. And of course we get the magic MacGuffins, the Elements of Harmony. Good start to the show, good pilot. There's a few small details that get retconned later. One that comes to mind is Apple Bloom, Sweetie Belle, and Scootaloo huddling together, but they haven't met until Call of the Cutie. One small thing I don't like is that young Luna appears when Nightmare Moon is defeated, but later in the show we see a flashback of her becoming Nightmare Moon and she didn't look like us. Obviously other season premieres are much stronger, but this one gets the job done. I'll put it in great. The Ticketmaster. If you watch the tier list videos I made in 2020, you'll remember I really didn't like this one. It just seemed pointless to me for Celestia to put Twilight through all of that, when she could have just given the 6 or 7 tickets Spike got one too in the first place. I realize now this was obviously a test by Celestia, but I think it's too early in Twilight's new friendships to endure this kind of test. She very recently met these ponies and had no experience with friendship before. This test could have easily destroyed her new friendships. There's a scene where some pony, I think it was Pinkie Pie, yeah it was definitely Pinkie Pie, lets it slip that Twilight's an extra ticket out in public, and then Twilight's running away from everyone in Ponyville. So Celestia's test could have alienated Twilight from not just her new friends, but all of Ponyville and make her want to move back to Canterlot. Aside from the fact that these friends of Twilight are the main characters and the show has to go on, there's almost the entire season left, I think the main reason they stay together is because they represent the elements of harmony and they need each other. We just found these ancient artifacts, we can't render them useless yet. From a writing perspective, I understand setting up the Grand Galloping Gala, but this could have waited a couple episodes. Probably not back-to-back of suited for success, but you have a good amount of room to push it a little. I think that's all I have to say on why it's poorly timed. I think this was a good episode to exist. It sets up the characters' motives for going to the gala, although Spike's distaste for it is completely 180'd later. He was all, ew, girly things the whole episode. He was disappointed to not get a ticket from Celestia initially the second time, although he was perfectly fine not going the first time. I think she genuinely forgot about him when Celestia sent the 6 tickets, and then was like, oh, whoops, have to send another one for Spike. I think Spike just felt left out when all 6 girls were going, because in the season finale, he's all excited to go to the gala to hang out with all of them. Rainbow Dash's motive also changes a little. In this episode, she clearly describes interrupting the Wonderbolt show. I'm not exaggerating, she precisely says they're performing, and she'll show up to perform her own tricks. That'll somehow make the Wonderbolts want her. I'm so glad she changed her mind about that. Fluttershy's reason is often disregarded because she technically isn't stepping foot on the dance floor, but technically, in this episode, she says the gardens at that building are beautiful and that all the flowers are only in bloom that night. That has a perfectly valid reason to go. Even in the season finale, there's lots of ponies exploring the gardens. That's where Applejack sets up her stand. It's a little disappointing that everyone forgot about that and just focused on the animals. Speaking of Applejack, I'll talk about her when I get to the gala episode. Her motive goes unchanged. She wants to sell apples to raise money for her family and farm. Now Pinkie Pie. She thinks there'll be piñatas and pin the tail on the pony. Pinkie, you're lucky this is only the 2nd episode and you're not regarded as the expert party pony yet, because you really should have and would have known better. But I forgive you. You've never been to a Canterlot party at this point, so you don't know any better. As for Rarity, her wanting to meet high society ponies makes a lot of sense. Her crush on a handsome prince also makes sense. Rarity has shown a lot of interest in Canterlot, and this is only the 2nd, or technically 3rd episode of the show. If I were in Twilight's position and really had to pick one, I'd give a ticket to Rarity. If I gave away both tickets, the other would go to Fluttershy. Obviously, if I didn't have knowledge of the gala's catering, Applejack would be in consideration. I know Pinkie Pie is the popular one people would give the other ticket to, but I think that she thinks of the gala as any other party she's been to with the piñatas and pin the tail on the pony. Yes, it's the biggest party, but she doesn't see it as special as the other ponies do. Anyways, this episode overall is fine. It's kind of similar to the pilot in the way each of Twilight's friends get one-on-one moments with her. This is like the episode you'd watch to learn about all the main characters if you didn't watch the first episode. I'll put this episode in meh. Like I said, it's fine. I don't like hate it anymore. Applebuck season. I don't have much to say about this episode. I think it works fine. Maybe a little repetitive and predictable, and the jokes aren't really funny to me, but completely fine. I'll put it in meh below the Ticketmaster because that episode's higher stakes of who's getting the ticket made it more compelling to watch than Applebuck season. I also have to give the Ticketmaster a tiny bit of credit for introducing the Grand Galloping Gala, while this episode didn't really amount to much. Griffin the Brush Off. This episode can seem a little slowly paced. It takes a third of the episode for Gilda to show up, but the episode moves along faster when she does. I believe this episode's plot does a good job making us question whether Gilda's mean or it's just Pinky just jealous. What Gilda said in this scene was mean, but this episode and her character could have gone in the direction of she just wanted to spend time with her old friend and someone else kept interrupting, so she bottled up her anger until she exploded, and we all learn a lesson about feelings and not being jealous of your friend's other friends. And that would have gone both ways with Pinky jealous of Gilda and vice versa, which makes sense. The scenes following it, Twilight says Pinky's jealous, Pinky's in town watching Gilda, sets us up as a possibility, and Pinkie Pie questions this along with us. Pinky is a character who tends to break the fourth wall a lot, so her scene watching Gilda and kind of being the audience was pretty cool. She finds reasons that could justify Gilda's behavior as we are, and of course Gilda making Fluttershy cry is the last straw that confirms Gilda is being mean. And then we get the party scene, which builds up to a satisfying conclusion. This episode is pretty great. Even the slower paced prank stuff with Pinky and Rainbow Dash in the beginning sets up how much Pinky's friendship with Rainbow Dash means to her. I know I talked about another possibility for Gilda's character, being less secure in her friendship and wanting one-on-one time with RD and lashing out at Pinky and stuff, but I'm cool with how she actually is, and the episode's lesson is pretty good. I'll put this episode in great. I think it's worse than the pilot, because I feel like Friendship is Magic did more in the slower paced scenes than Griffin and Brush Off did. Ghostbusters. This was really good for Twilight's character. It felt perfectly natural for her to be afraid of appearing like a show-off. I also like seeing more of her practicing her magic and growing in magical ability too. I don't know why a well-known constellation is a giant bear in their universe. A physical manifestation of a constellation is interesting, but maybe a little more could have been done with that. It's not entirely this episode's fault because they just don't appear in the show again. Given how big the Ursa Major is, it might have been for the better of Equestria. Trixie works well for her role in the story. I really like how the little tricks she impressed ponies with do nothing to the Ursa. Perfect representation of how her abilities are, as Applejack says, all hat no cattle. Snips and Snails were also introduced in this episode. I guess the plot demanded someone not that bright to be impressed by Trixie and bring the Ursa Minor to town. It probably would have been too much of a coincidence for the Ursa to happen to show up the night after Trixie brags about vanquishing it. Maybe if the constellation creatures were omniscient and Trixie badmouthed them, they would track her down. Anyway, Snips and Snails are here, and I think they were just trying to be comic relief characters. I didn't find them that funny, they're just both impressionable kids. I didn't think much of Spike wanting the mustache to impress Rarity either. Something I noticed is that Fluttershy and Pinky don't have a speaking part in this episode. I could only find a crowd shot or two that featured them, and then there's other crowd shots where they suddenly aren't there. It would have been nice to see more of them this episode, even just to support Twilight at the end. Anyways, this episode is good. Dragonshy. I was surprised when I rewatched this one. It's pretty great. The animation has really cool moments, the characters all feel natural, and the plot is pretty high stakes for season 1. It all works very well, I enjoyed it. One small thing I'd nitpick would be Spike is also a dragon, and more reasons should have been given for why he couldn't come. It makes sense to have someone watch Fluttershy's animals, but maybe something else like, Spike's just a baby, he can't climb that big mountain, it's too dangerous, or something would have tied up all the loose ends. Just acknowledge another reason for why you couldn't go and this would be perfect. Our first amazing episode of the season. Look Before You Sleep. This one's okay. It's a lot of Applejack and Rarity bickering, which gets pretty one-note frequently. Most of the arguing comes down to Rarity's cleanliness and Applejack's sloppiness. The tree falling through the window wasn't that great of a climax either. Twilight could have easily levitated it and moved it outside. She just fought the Ursa Minor 2 episodes ago. Twilight can easily handle a tree. Just lift that up and push it out the window. I also have no idea what Spike's royal business was. I mean, he's not a dragon ambassador, and I don't think he's a personal servant of either princess. This throwaway line could work in later seasons when Twilight's a princess, but here in season 1 it asks more questions than it answers. You could have said Spike just went camping, and that would have been a better explanation, even with the big storm outside. Spike was likely an afterthought for the writers because he would be all over Rarity if she spent the night with him, and that would have interfered with the plot. I admit I like the idea of the girls having a slumber party together. I wish this episode could have had just all 6 girls sleeping over and teaching Twilight about slumber parties, since this is her first one. That would have been a good low-stakes episode with the characters bonding and becoming closer. Instead, we just get the 2 polar opposites in the group bickering for 20 minutes. Meh. Below Applebuck season, that one feels harmless in comparison to the problems in this one. Bridal Gossip. This episode and Over a Barrel, I'll talk about that one later, are both controversial. I researched both sides of it for both episodes for this video so I can give a well-rounded opinion. I think Bridal Gossip is the better of the two. One reason is the episode's resolution. Over a Barrel's ending is rushed and questionable, but Bridal Gossip is crystal clear that the girls' behavior was wrong. They learned they were completely wrong to misjudge Sakura, and they apologize. There aren't any other zebra characters in the show. I think there's some in the comics, but I've never read those. But based on how the main 6 act in the future around other species they don't know, it seems like they really learned their lesson. I admit no one judged Gilda for being a griffin just a few episodes ago, but her already being Rainbow Dash's friend might have made them more open to meeting a griffin. Anyway, there are other aspects of this episode I enjoy. I love Twilight judging a book by its cover. It's set up very well with Twilight strongly disbelieving curses and artificial magic when her friends repeatedly push her on it. It's also very early season 1, so she has so much room to grow and can make goofy mistakes like that. I love the poison joke, every character is afflicted by it perfectly. Applejack being overprotective Apple Bloom, I love seeing some character interaction there. We also see some good Apple Bloom moments that don't have anything to do with finding her cutie mark. The show does have another episode with the don't judge someone by appearances lesson, that being season 2's Luna Eclipse, which is much more loved in fandom. I'll talk about it in my season 2 video. All I will say now is that Princess Luna's previous reputation of being Nightmare Moon and her actually intimidating presence in Ponyville on the holiday about Nightmare Moon works so much better. As for Bridal Gossip, I think it's good. I think there's worse episodes from the season. I think it's better than Ghostbusters because the conflict was better introduced here. You could also say it's better character development to see our main characters make a mistake and learn from it than half the main 6 being the moral high horses up on their soapbox about Trixie's boasting. Swarm of the Century. I love this episode. The Parasprites are the perfect antagonist. I love how high the stakes get. This is one of my favorites from season 1. If I had to nitpick anything, it would be that the ending of dumping them back into the Everfree Forest might have not gotten rid of them for good. I mean, they eat everything but food at that point, so wouldn't they just eat the trees and reproduce and devour the whole forest? I would have liked to see at least a little glimpse of a predator in the forest just grabbing one. You don't have to graphically show one being eaten, just heavily imply they can actually be stopped naturally by something else in the Everfree Forest. I'd feel more satisfied with the ending if that tied up all loose ends. I still really love this episode, definitely recommend it. Better than Dragonshy, the Everfree Forest is a pretty mysterious place, especially this early in the show, so I can excuse the dumping them in the forest resolution nitpick. I'm not saying the episode's flawless, but that's why it's an amazing and not perfect. Winter wrap-up. I know I should complain about the huge time skip, but it probably took months to rebuild Ponyville after Swarm of the Century, so I think it checks out. I rewatched my season 1 tier list video from years ago, and I still agree with something I said about this episode. The mayor should have been the organizer. Twilight Sparkle is obviously the princess of organization, but we could have seen more of an effort from the mayor. She literally says she hoped her inspiring speech would help them wrap up winter on time. What speech, you may ask? The 10-second, we need every pony's help to wrap up winter at the beginning of the episode. Considering all she did was give the speech, you would think she'd at least do something else to try to organize this. I guess an early sign of the disorganization and lack of an effort from the mayor was the fact Twilight wasn't assigned to a team in the beginning. I think it's perfectly fine that Ponyville doesn't use magic to wrap up winter. Since ponies control the weather anyway, it seems like the normal thing to wrap up winter themselves. All the Earth ponies and Pegasi who work farms or control the weather would be out of jobs if Unicorn's magic just did everything. Canterlot is mostly occupied by unicorns, so it makes sense they would use their magic to wrap up winter. There's not a lot of Pegasi living there, so it's not like they can move the clouds for them. Anyway, I think this episode's good. This is an interesting ranking in the same tier as Ghostbusters, which also had Twilight unsure about whether she should use her magic. I have to say Winter Wrap-Up is better than Ghostbusters. I think Bridal Gossip is better though. Winter Wrap Up gets a little repetitive. Call of the Cutie. I don't like this one much. Apple Bloom whines a lot. Pointless attempts are made by some of the main six to give Apple Bloom a cutie mark, though I think Pinkie Pie just wanted help making cupcakes. And there isn't much to this episode. Diamond TR and Silverstone start bullying Blank Flanks, and Apple Bloom meets Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle. I guess the resolution at the party was good, but that's it. I don't hate this episode, it's just mostly not good. Yeah, it goes in the bad tier. Fall Weather Friends. You messed up the timeline. We just wrapped up winter 2 episodes ago. You have to frame this episode as a telling of a story that happened last fall, or move it backward to take place before winter wrap-up. You can't jump half a year after winter wrap-up. You're implying that it's been over a full year since Twilight moved to Ponyville, because the Summer Sun celebration happened the same day she moved. Which is impossible for a whole year to pass, because the Grand Galloping Gala was set up to happen, and it's an event that happens every year. So taking us to over a year since the pilot leads us to believe that the gala's already happened. We jumped too far and missed the big event. Timeline rant aside, I have mixed feelings about this episode. I really don't like Rainbow Dash cheating during the Iron Pony competition. Using her wings in an athletic competition that doesn't have anything to do with flying against an Earth pony is a really bad look. The ponies watching should have objected to that. From the episode's perspective, Applejack's the only one bothered by it, even though this was absolutely ridiculous. Instead of Rainbow's cheating prompting the rematch, having the competition end in a tie would more naturally increase the competitive side of both ponies, and they want the rematch and get caught up in the run and think the other cheated, so they cheat too, and so on and so forth. I like Pinkie Pie and Spike being commentators, except they focused on their friends running, even when they're both in last, and don't announce the actual winners of the run. If they did, our competitive ponies would have heard and realized how far behind they were. I guess if they did their job properly and Applejack and Rainbow Dash still thought they were winning, it would make a plot hole. As for the question of who's more athletic, I'd say Rainbow Dash is faster, but Applejack is stronger. This sounds like a cop-out answer, but that's what Equestria Girls thinks. This episode's not that good to me. I really think Rainbow Dash getting in the way of cheating in the initial competition is a big flaw. We should have seen some outrage from other ponies about that instead of accepting her as the winner, especially since this is a town founded by Earth ponies and mainly occupied by Earth ponies. I'll put it in bad, but I'll put it above Call of the Cutie. I'm sorry, I really can't get over her cheating with her wings and not even getting booed by the ponies watching. Suited for success. This is the second episode that sets up the Grand Galloping Gala, where Rarity makes dresses for her friends. She also designed and started making one for herself, and her friends helped finish it. She really shines here. Love her. Love art of the dress. Actually love the reprise even more. Love the dresses she made for her and her friends. Those 5 are fools to not be jumping for joy over these beauties. Twilight, you thought this dress was beautiful. Why not this one? Fluttershy, you're surprisingly knowledgeable about sewing. How do you not like this dress? Request this, and be happy with this. This episode is great, one of my personal favorites from Season 1. If I had to nitpick anything, it would be that some of the jokes don't really land for me. That's a small thing though, it's not that big of a deal or that uncommon for a Season 1 episode. I think it's better than Griffin the Brush Off because of more consistent pacing. Oh yeah, if you didn't notice, episodes that are left in the tier are better than the ones to the right of it. Feeling Pinkie keen. A small detail I really enjoyed was Fluttershy saying the hop, skip, and a jump line that Pinkie Pie told her back in Dragonshy. I'm happy to see Fluttershy growing a little and being braver. I also like Twilight asking herself what a brave pony like Rainbow Dash would do. Little details like that show how her friends help her be a better pony. Spike jumping to believe Pinkie's ability very quickly is an interesting shift from being skeptical like he was in Ghostbusters. Maybe that's because he saw Pinkie Pie's ability actually work. Of course, Twilight's doubtful of Pinkie Pie's ability, and that's what drives the episode's plot. I like the bit where she stands on an actual soapbox while lecturing the difference between her magic and Pinkie's predictions. I don't care for Twilight getting repeatedly injured while spying on Pinkie Pie. Those might have just been jokes I didn't find funny. It is kind of weird how almost every one of Pinkie Pie's predictions affected or actually hurt Twilight. Is it dumb luck that everyone affected Twilight? Or does ignoring the predictions lead to being harmed by whatever happens because you didn't do anything about them? I don't know. I could see Twilight witnessing the Pinkie sense once or twice and obsessing over it, so maybe getting hurt over and over again wasn't necessary. Also, Twilight mastered the levitation spell and teleportation spell many episodes ago, so she could have got her friends across, or even just herself across. This episode's fine, but it has some problems. Decent. Sonic Rainboom. I like how last episode had no Rarity or Rainbow Dash, and this episode has a strong focus on them. That's some nice balance. Fluttershy has some good moments here too. I like how this episode hints at the past the Flight School, Rainbow Dash, Fluttershy, and these bullies went to. It's a cool detail to notice on a rewatch after seeing the Cutie Mark Chronicles. This episode has good world building, showcasing Cloudsdale, and we learn that only Pegasus ponies can walk on clouds normally. Twilight using her magic to make wings and get the non-Pegasi ponies to walk on clouds is a great way to see her ability. I appreciate the detail that the spell to make wings is too hard to do more than once. It's nice to see some sort of limitation on magic so unicorns aren't overpowered. Rarity getting distracted by her beautiful wings may seem exaggerated, but I think it's natural for her character. Rarity's not shallow, but she's never got to fly before. She's been a unicorn her whole life. The wings themselves are also nothing anyone's ever seen before. They're not made of feathers like Pegasi wings are. It makes sense that she'd admire them in the mirror. She's never got to fly before, so it makes sense that she'd be flying around nearly the whole episode. Rarity getting caught up in all the attention and enjoying the competition also makes sense. The only thing that doesn't is how Rarity put together such a hideous look for the competition. Unless the goal was to look bad so everyone would look at the wings instead. I really like that Rarity flying too close to the sun made her lose her wings. That's a cool parallel to Greek mythology's Icarus, who famously flew too close to the sun and lost his wings. Rainbow Dash's stage fright makes sense for her character. She says herself that she performed the Sonic Rainboom once a long time ago when she was a filly. Not being able to do it in rehearsal now would reasonably undermine her confidence and make her doubt herself. It's a very rare moment of vulnerability for Rainbow's character, which I really appreciate. This episode goes in amazing for me. Stairmaster. If it weren't for Sweetie Belle using her sister's gold silk, who has to cancel the sleepover to make more, so the sleepover is at Fluttershy's place next to the Everfree Forest, Twilight Sparkle would probably still be stoned. Anyways, Fluttershy's expectations for watching the girls make sense. All the activities she names are definitely things she did as a kid. She'd be good at watching quiet, calm kids. The Cutie Mark Crusaders are too adventurous to sit quietly, though. The Cutie Mark Crusaders act as they do in later episodes, so this first episode of the three together is a perfectly accurate introduction to what they do in a lot of episodes. They run around trying random things in hopes of getting their cutie marks. I think Sweetie Belle gets the most chances to shine as an individual in this one. She has seen the beginning of Rarity, she sings a song to keep him awake, and she pretends to be the creature catcher when Scootaloo and Apple Bloom are pretending to be the creature. Other than that, in the argument between Scootaloo and Apple Bloom, the girls kind of act as one chaotic trio the whole time. I like Fluttershy's stare ability. It works for her as her special talent is being good with animals. I also like Fluttershy's bravery, going into the Everfree Forest and facing off the cockatrice. She's grown a lot this season. I'm so proud of her. The scene of them apologizing to her is also great. Things definitely pick up after Twilight's found Turn the Stone, but it can be repetitive and annoying to watch the Cutie Mark Crusaders' chaos for most of the episode. This episode is decent. I think it's a little worse than Feeling Pinky Keen. The Showstoppers. This one's like Stairmaster, except each member of the Cutie Mark Crusader gets more individual moments and there's less main six intervention. The montage of the stuff they do around Ponyville is definitely too long. The talent show doesn't get introduced until 8 minutes in the episode. The rest of the episode up until the talent show is interesting. We see the process of them putting together their act, yet we don't really know what they're doing. I don't know why they won Best Comedy Act. The only laughter was when the set crashed on them and they could have been badly hurt. Their performance was what you'd expect from a group of kids. You're not supposed to love the song, okay? I thought the Snips and Snails magic act for the talent show was pretty funny. Anyways, this episode's not really a winner for me. The ending isn't really satisfying, and it's hard to tell what's really happening for a lot of it. Like I said, you don't really see what they're actually doing or have any sense of how it will come together. I don't hate this one, it's just meh to me. I say better than Look Before You Sleep. A dog and pony show. This episode's plot starts as a standard damsel in distress trope, but the damsel in distress whines and cries and annoys the captors until they release her. The Diamond Dogs are such weak antagonists. Only in season 1 could they overpower the main six. And honestly, I think the girls are stronger than that at this point in the season. But they have to be weak, or they'd rescue Rarity much sooner and most of the episode wouldn't happen. This is also more of a Spike and Rarity episode, and with most Spike episodes, other characters must be weakened for him to look good. This is also one of the first episodes where Spike's crush on Rarity creates some weird moments. The whole daydream sequence makes sense for Spike, but it still feels weird to watch. I can see why the rest of the main six wanted to rescue Rarity, but I don't think they would see her as that helpless. It's an easy one-dimensional assumption to make of Rarity, but her best friends wouldn't think so little of her, right? Maybe it's too early in the show for them to not think she's that helpless? But didn't venturing into the Everfree Forest to defeat Nightmare Moon or climbing the mountain to face the dragon prove herself? Well, the episode's lesson is that ladylike ponies can still hold their own in tough situations. I kind of thought that was a recurring theme for the show as a whole, so maybe we didn't need an episode that only taught that lesson. In addition to the rest of the main six being easily overpowered by the Diamond Dogs, they might just be a little bit dumbed down in this episode. One conversation comes to mind where Spike says they should follow the tunnel of the most gems, and Twilight's like, only Rarity can do that spell. And Spike's like, no, you can copy it. And Twilight's like, OMG, yeah, I can. How is Spike the one to remember the spell Twilight learned from Rarity? I'm sorry, but this conversation clearly highlights how most of the main six are dumbed down, so Spike can look good. Somehow, almost all of the good dialogue of this episode comes from the exchanges between the Diamond Dogs and Rarity, and half of it is whining and crying. This is actually a frustrating episode. I am so sorry. One thing I really enjoyed, though, was the opening scene of Sapphire Shores. I always laugh when she says she has that effect on ponies after Rarity faints. I have to put this one in awful. It's much worse than Call of the Cutie to me. It's probably not the worst one of the season, though. Green isn't your color. This episode's about Fluttershy accidentally becoming a model, and she and Rarity aren't honest with each other about how they feel about it. Surprisingly, Applejack, the element of honesty, is absent from this episode. It would make sense for her to at least be there to encourage the two to be honest with each other about their feelings. I'm happy Rarity and Fluttershy worked through it and without any fighting or drama. I like seeing them be such good friends of each other. These two aren't paired up much. Pinkie Pie popping up everywhere to keep Twilight from breaking her promise was pretty funny. I think this is when Pinkie promises are introduced, so it's great seeing Pinkie take them so seriously as she does throughout the show. Spike's also in this episode, but it feels natural for him to be around to try to support Rarity when she's upset. His crush on her is still kind of weird, but it's more subtly portrayed here. I love Photo Finish, she's great. I was surprised to see how many celebrity-type ponies were introduced in Season 1. We had Hoity Toity and Stood for Success, Sapphire Shores, and a Dog and Pony Show, and Photo Finish here. They're fun recurring characters to occasionally see, and getting them this early helps develop the world, I feel like. These are celebrities a lot of ponies look up to, and learning that kind of knowledge about Equestria is pretty neat. I don't have anything bad to say about this episode. I really like it. Good. Better than the other episodes here. Over a barrel. I don't care much for Appaloosa, and this episode was definitely a bad first impression. This episode is pretty hated, and it makes sense why. I don't like this episode overall. The only thing I liked was the animation in the train when the lights were out, Fluttershy's I'd Like to Be a Tree scene. As for the episode's conflict, Appaloosa has a train station they can just get food imported from elsewhere. Clearly that's been the case, otherwise this town has existed for a year without any food. But obviously the ponies are still alive, so they've had to get food imported while the trees grew. Applejack says there's no other flatland for them to plant the trees, but I'm not buying that. Look at all this flatland. You had to build the town in flatland, didn't you? Couldn't you plant, like, some trees in the town? Wouldn't that help the soil? There's plenty of room to move the trees. If you say the soil is worse here, import some fertilizer. Surely in the magic world, there's some magic thing that helps the soil. You're earth ponies, you're farmers. You should know better. Now, I imagine that since this is a Magic Girl Pony show for children, the creators probably intended to just teach a lesson about sharing. But creating messy real-world parallels was the really wrong way to do that. As I mentioned earlier, this episode's resolution is really rushed and questionable. They start a war, and fight with pies, which begs the question, is this serious warfare or not? And then they decide to share the land. Like I said, this is a show for children. A simple lesson about sharing was probably the very bare foundation of the episode. This wasn't the way to do it. If the episode's trying to teach the simple share is good lesson, then kids are going to watch this and think, oh, this person took this toy from me, so we share. That doesn't make much sense. It's safe to say this is probably the worst episode of the season. Worse than a Dog and Pony Show. A Bird in the Hoof. This episode's kind of strange to me. I think it tries to lean very heavily into comedy, which means if the jokes are funny, this episode's enjoyable, but if they're not landing, this episode's kind of meh. I liked the bits at the party. Celestia with the tea was probably my favorite. Unfortunately, a big chunk of the episode was repetitive Fluttershy struggles to take care of Philomena jokes. Twilight showing up to Fluttershy's cottage and panicking works, but her appearance only makes the plot move a tiny bit. This is because there is very little plot to the episode. They have the party, Fluttershy takes the pet, tries to take care of it, Twilight shows up, panics, tries to forces her to take the medicine soup, Philomena escapes, there's a montage of the chase, again very heavy with the comedy, she fakes her own death, Celestia shows up and tells her to stop messing around and straighten the situation out, and that's it. We learn to ask before taking matters into our own hooves. That's it. Like I said, this episode tried to be a lighthearted comedy with very little plot or substance. The episode itself ends with every pony laughing. This might not have been the best story for this, or maybe with better execution on the comedy it could have worked. I'm not sure. I'm not even questioning why Fluttershy never heard of a phoenix before. Despite the implications of kidnapping the princess's pet, this episode doesn't take itself that seriously. I think it's somehow a little better than Look Before You Sleep. The Cutie Mark Chronicles. Yeah, this is probably the best episode of the season. We got the Cutie Mark stories, which are basically origin stories for our main characters. I thought it was perfect how the Cutie Mark Crusaders were running around getting each story along the way until they reached Rainbow Dash, heard the last story that was like the last piece of the puzzle, and we found out where that recurring rainbow came from. It's perfect. Owl's Well That Ends Well. I somehow pronounced that perfectly on the first try. The Punch Has Been Spike joke is one of my favorites. One of my favorite jokes from the season. Just had to mention it. I also want to quickly mention there are some beautifully animated moments in this episode. I might just be a sucker for the pretty lighting and shadows. This is the first Spike episode of the show. It's far from the worst of them. It might actually be good. I mean, Spike works hard, he's not messing up his chores. Aloysius is just doing them before he can. He did make a mistake at the beginning, but it makes sense he wouldn't say anything. Everyone was showering him with praise and adoration. He didn't want to let anyone down. I love the resolution when Spike's honest about his feelings and Twilight assures him he could never be replaced. It's really sweet. I found the bit with the mouse pretty funny. Spike momentarily becomes a diabolical villain in the goofiest way possible. I also like Aloysius. He's a pretty cool pet. The only thing I don't care for is the Who jokes. I was fine with it the first time, but it got overplayed quickly. And this is far from the last time you will hear those jokes in the show. I think it's better than Ghostbusters. Party of One. Pinkie Pie invites her friends to a party the day after she threw a party and assumes the worst when they can't go. I understand from a storytelling perspective why they showed the party at the beginning to show how much fun they have and how much the parties mean to Pinkie Pie, but a little time jump was probably needed. Just a few days or a week would be a big improvement. Pinkie's reaction from her friends being unable to go to a last-minute party the day after her last party was definitely too much. It puts her more in the wrong than she should be if we are to root for her in the story. I think it would work much better if she remembered it was her birthday and Gummy's after birthday was a cover for her surprise birthday party she was throwing herself and was upset her friends couldn't be there. Instead, the day being her birthday is a surprise for kind of a cheap twist. I accept that Pinkie Pie is the most likely to forget her own birthday, but suspense over surprise often works better than an unforeseen twist. It's more compelling to know all the facts that some characters are deprived of and see how they react and how they finally learn the truth, than to keep the audience in the dark and surprise them in the end. I get that this is a Pinkie Pie focused episode, so aside from the issue of her overreaction to not getting her friends to go to a party the day after she threw a party, it does work to keep us in the dark with Pinkie Pie. I realize I might sound harsh, but that's because I really like this episode. I just wish its problems were worked out so I can rank it higher. I think it's better than Griffin the Brush Off. It goes in great. The Best Night Ever. This is the only season finale that isn't a two-parter, except for technically the last problem. I like the song at the gala. It serves as a quick and entertaining way to remind the audience of the characters' reasons for going to the gala. I'll talk through each character's storyline in the order the song mentions them, just for fun. Fluttershy only talks about the animals. It seems like she forgot about the beautiful garden. That's a shame. All of the animals run away from her. It's easy to question why she's struggling to approach animals when being good with animals is her special talent. But I have a theory that the animals were scared of her because the ponies in Camelot might not have been that nice to them. I can imagine a lot of the snooty Camelot ponies shooing the ugly ones away while squeezing the cute ones too tightly. Stuff like that. Basically, the animals aren't used to a gentle pony interacting with them, so they run from any pony, especially at the Grand Galloping Gala, where everyone there is basically a snooty Camelot pony. I love how angry Fluttershy gets. She's usually so calm, but it makes sense that the animal's rejection would frustrate her. Applejack wants to sell her food product at a catered event. She didn't know it was catered, but it should have been mentioned on the invitation, so that's a miscommunication on Princess Celestia and the gala committee's part, which is probably why Applejack doesn't get thrown out of the gala. If you don't tell people you're providing food, they'll bring their own. We don't see anyone else bringing food, but that's probably because the ponies in Canada likely go to the gala every year and know they always provide food, and that makes up almost everyone in attendance. Trying to sell it there isn't the best look, but Applejack had really pure intentions in mind, fixing the barn and getting Granny a new hip. She tries a few different ways to draw attention to her stand, and Rarity and Prince Blueblood pay her a visit. But since every pony's eating the fancy free stuff, no one wants her food. She somehow turns her goods into a cake, but that gets smashed. I don't think anyone would have paid her for a slice, but good on her for trying. Rarity focuses more on the prince and being around high society ponies. Prince Blueblood turns out to be rude. Rarity tries to push back, but he doesn't stop being selfish. The last straw for Rarity is when he uses her as a shield from the cake. I love that she smashes the glass slipper that falls off when they're running away. Rainbow Dash, she doesn't interrupt the show. Good job, Rainbow Dash. But she manages to run into the Wonderbolts, impresses them by catching a pie, and gets them to hang out in the VIP section with them. But it's too loud and no one can hear her. That's so relatable, actually. This is the most realistic thing to happen to someone at a party, especially one of high expectations. It's just hard to socialize in a loud environment. I get it. She does a bunch of tricks, but they don't hold the Wonderbolt's attention for long. She tries catching a falling statue, but accidentally causes more property damage. Pinkie Pie still has the wrong idea about the party. She tries to liven things up, but the snooty Canterlot ponies aren't that interested. Pony Pokey is another fun song. Her attempt at a stage dive launches Applejack's cake into the air. Why she didn't make contact with the cake? I don't know, that would have been a safer fall. Twilight Sparkle gets the least amount of screen time in this episode. She gets to be with Celestia like she wanted, but they're greeting the ponies arriving at the gala and don't get to talk. It's kind of weird that there's ponies arriving the whole time. That's a lot of ponies showing up late to the event. I love how the characters' individual things connect in the end before they leave. Them getting donuts together and laughing about how bad the gala was is a satisfying ending. I almost forgot about Spike. He wanted them all to hang out together at the gala. It might be because he doesn't have a thing to do. Or like I said earlier, he just wanted to hang out with all of them. He didn't want to miss out on the fun. I'm glad he wasn't like a boring downer bouncing between each girl all night. I could easily imagine him being a kind of annoying guy interrupting what each of the girls are doing to try to force them together. Be like, hey, this isn't working out. Why don't you go see what Pinkie Pie's up to? Why don't you go cheer her up? No, we needed to see each of the girls' things play out. Him hiding at the donut place and saying "one I told you so" at the end benefited the rest of the episode. Amazing. Better than the other episodes in this tier. Now let's see how Season 1 fares overall. I'd like to determine the quality of the season by how good the average episode is. There are obviously other factors like the animation, voice acting, direction, overarching plot, etc. that can also determine how good the season is. But let's just focus on the episode quality here. I assigned each tier list a number. That'll be the amount of points an episode it gets. If we add the points for each tier, 2 points for bad, 10 points for meh, 6 points for decent, 20 points for good, 20 points for great, 24 points for amazing, and 7 points for perfect, we get 89. If we divide that by the number of episodes, it's technically 26, but we consider Friendship is Magic as one episode, so it's 25, we get 3.56. Since decent is 3 and good is 4, this means the average episode of Season 1 is between decent and good, leaning more toward good. If we round up the number, this means the average episode in Season 1 is good. So I declare that solely based on the episode quality, Season 1 of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic is good. And that's all for this video. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.